Well, hi everyone. It's Bronnie here again for another day in Bronnie's World, and it's Tip Tuesday today. And I think it's day 1020, if I've got my maths right. And today I have with me the son of a friend who I have grown to love over this last couple of years. But the son I love just as much as because he has an inspiring story. He keeps his dad on track because they have a radio show, and he keeps his dad on track without Adrian. His dad, Tom Chenault, would be off with the fairies, probably a bit like me, really. Always getting off track. Anyway, I have asked Tom Chenault to come and share a little bit of his story. And my goodness, I don't know what he's going to share because it's up to him. But just thinking about this poor child had to grow up with Tom as a dad. Actually, was probably quite hilarious because he's quite hilarious now, isn't he, Adrian?
It can be both.
But anyway, I'm glad to see you keep him on track from time to time. I hear he's a bit of a troublesome that way. And when he came to Australia a few years back, long before I knew him, I was told he had to be kept on track all the time as well. So I have to hear that story one day, but you don't know that because you weren't with him, obviously. Anyway, so without any further ado, Ronnie's going to hand it over to her guest for the day, Adrian Chenault, and let him share his wonderful story. Thank you, Adrian. Take it away.
This is great. Yeah, thanks for having me. And I'm always excited when I get to be part of the future, because since it's Monday night here in the US and it's Tuesday in Australia, I feel like I am getting a head start on my week. So it's good to be with you.
You're in the future when you come and talk to me in Bronnie's World.
That's exactly right. So yeah, my name's Adrian Chenault, and as Bronwyn said, I am the son of Tom Chenault, who is a mutual friend of ours, and somebody who's been
a friend to you, Adrian. Seriously,
he's all of the above, and he has been somebody who has created a lot of success in his life as an entrepreneur. And it's been interesting, as we sort of laughed at and joked about, it's always interesting growing up, the child of somebody who is, kind of has a big profile and has a big personality. And in the case of my dad in particular, is somebody who, is this sort of big personality type that can sort of take over a room or take over, whatever it is that he's a part of, and to do that. And so, as a young kid, I'm the oldest. I am a very typical eldest child of, wanting to be, a bit of a conformist. I like to follow the rules. I want to, please others and achieve and do all of these things. And I had a dad who was just, a live wire. And so it was interesting and really powerful for me to have that experience, because I think that my dad really helped me to expand, to constantly expand my horizons and to grow beyond, just doing things in a certain way, to be able to, to see things differently and to have a different perspective. And so my parents divorced when I was in, primary school, year 2, year 3, something like that. And, what ended up happening is as things would go on, I would go back and forth between their houses half the time. And my mother was was very, by the book, very sort of, this supportive, very kind, very organized, make dinner for everyone every night sort of a person. And then dad would be the person that you go over to his house, and for years he literally had two or three items of food in his house at any given time. He had a gigantic bag of rice, and he owned this rice cooker. He had a refrigerator full of T-bone steaks, and he would have milk, which was usually those were the two things. And then milk, usually what you were 50-50 on whether the milk was any good anymore. Those were the three things. And so my wife, this somehow came up this morning. My wife was like, so your mom told me this story that like at a very young age, she taught you how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because she was worried you were going to like starve at your dad's house. So I had this like very sort of like polar opposite ends of the spectrum upbringing. And I think that really helped me to be a person that is able to live in in the whole spectrum of personality types and ways of being, and to be able to adapt. And that really helped me. And so through school, I continued to be that sort of very high achieving, very like I wanted to get the best grades in school. I wanted to be at the top of my class, all this sort of thing. And I'm watching my dad over here in a network marketing entrepreneurial world. And I really loved and appreciated what he did because it allowed us to go on great vacations and do all these things. But I always was of the opinion of like, that's good for you, but like, we're so different. It wouldn't be for me. And yet, meanwhile, my dad is now 34 years sober from being an alcoholic, and so I just turned 38. So I was 4 years old when he stopped drinking. I don't really ever remember him drinking, but I have this legacy of realizing what a gift that has been, and what has always been a really important value to my dad is his fellow man, both helping people that are really down in the dumps, whether because of addiction or whatever, all the way up to the very top. Just people were always super important to him, and he always made that a priority. And that was instilled into me without me even realizing it, to be honest, but it became part of my values too. And so I graduated university. I was the top of my class. I went into investments for several years, and then I ended up in the corporate world, and worked for a tech company. I spent 2 years living in Sydney, so not too far down, not too far away from you. No. And so I moved all over the world. And during that time, the reason that I had the successes that I had in my corporate career and had all these opportunities. So I mentioned to you before we started recording that our children were all born in separate places. So our first was born in Texas, where I met my wife. Our second was born in England. And then we went from England to Australia and lived 2 years there, and then ultimately to Switzerland. And our third was born in Switzerland.
Oh,
and
you
all
should have
of
had an
that,
Aussie. Seriously,
conceived in Oz, born in Switzerland. So
well, then
half.
Then that one is part Aussie because she's
There we go.
Yes. Is it a girl or a boy?
A boy, Hugo.
Okay. Well, yeah. You tell him that your Aussie friends classes him as an Aussie because he was conceived here.
There we go. So, we had this opportunity to live all over the world. Yes, there we go. Plant the flag. I love it. If I could, of all the places we lived, Sydney was by far my favorite. I very much want to go back and live in Sydney or somewhere in Australia again. We loved it there.
You make sure you come visit if you do come over.
I will. And so, the reason that all of those things happened was because I had this innate sort of value, I guess, that the way that you could get things done and the way that the way to go about doing business was to do it through people. And so I had a finance background. Finance people are not generally known to be the world's friendliest types. They tend to sort of be the spreadsheet people and not the people kind of, that's not what they do. And I had this just sort of this instinctive understanding that if your goal is to build, to be a business partner to this person, you need to have a relationship with them. You need to, they need to trust you. You need to trust them. You need to know what they're all about. And so that's what I did. And I ended up building relationships all across this business and all over the world ultimately. And as a result of that, at 32 years old, I was running all the finance organization for everything outside the United States for about a $2 billion revenue tech company. And so it was about $1 billion P&L. and I was the effectively the CFO over that operation. And there's no way that that would have happened if it weren't for this value of connecting with the human. And so it was in that time period where there was this sort of moment where things came full circle. And I realized, my dad and I realized, he had just turned 65. He was sort of thinking about, do I retire? What is my legacy? What's really important to me? What do I want the rest of my life to look like? And we realized that the unifying thing that has driven both of our lives, and the thing that has been the most meaningful to both of us, was relationships and connection and the power of that. And we had this epiphany moment where we realized that this sort of code, or this philosophy that he had lived by and passed on to me without me even realizing it, that we now called contact mapping, that was really what both of our lives were about. And so about 5 years ago, I left the company I was working for. We moved back from Switzerland to Colorado in the United States, and we started a company together. And the mission of what we do today is to impact the world and impact business people through helping them to leverage and unlock the power that exists inside of their relationships, if they will invest into those relationships and be willing to see the power that exists there. And so that's what I'm up to these days. And it's pretty fun getting to do it with my dad every single day.
And that's how contact mapping was born. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No, I learned something new myself. And that's what I love about, getting to chat with you guys, is I learn something new from all of you every single time. And that's what relationships is all about, isn't it? Just because that's what makes the world go round, is relationships. It really is. I think
learning each other's stories is such a powerful thing in and of itself.
Oh yes, and these last few years has really brought that to the fore. I think, I believe, that's what I believe, that how important relationships are, particularly when we were kept away from our loved ones physically. And
yes,
and we could contact map through Zoom.
Yep, exactly.
But contact mapping is a little bit more than just that, isn't it? It's not just doing what you and I are doing now, having a chat over Zoom. It's about recording it, isn't it?
It is. And so here's the thing, right? You and I, and even recording this conversation as you are right now, if we just have a conversation and it's not recorded, we just have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever, and we have a conversation, and I don't take that and document it somewhere, I will remember, maybe 20% of that conversation, right? I'll remember a few details. I'll probably mix up a few others, and most of it will just be lost to time, because it will go away. And what we teach and what we know to be true is that there's tremendous value and power in taking just a bit of time to remember the key details of someone's story, right? To remember that you were one of 8 kids, to remember that you have a brother, Adrian, just like me, to remember that you grew up on a dairy farm, and the bits that are important about you and that make you unique. Those are the things that I want to capture. And it doesn't take much to do it. And it allows me to be in an ongoing real relationship with you that that all kinds of possibility exists inside, whether it's that maybe we end up in some kind of business partnership together. Maybe it's that we end up volunteering together. Maybe it's that we, go on holiday together, or whatever it is, right? There's all of these things exist inside of that, but most people are totally not intentional about their relationships. And as a result, I think they miss out on a lot of the fruit that could come from doing so. And the amount of effort required is just not that much. And so that's a huge part of what we teach and help others to do, and that we've created a tool to enable, is just to make it possible for you to remember the important bits, to make it possible for you to have little reminders, to make sure that you don't lose track of people who you would otherwise like to keep in touch with. And you develop this powerful, do they have Rolodexes in Australia? Does that
Yeah,
even
we
mean
had
anything else?
them.
Yeah, all right. So it's like a Rolodex on steroids. That's one of the things that I like to say is it's, it takes this old idea of this sort of, this place to keep all your, addresses and phone numbers and all that. And it transforms it into this much bigger, much more sort of three-dimensional picture of who a person is.
Yes, we see Rolodexes were, around when I was younger, but the younger generation wouldn't have a clue what they are.
I know.
Contact mapping is perfect for them because they're always on their phone anyway, so they can just pick it up. And I learned something new about it. I was trying to figure out, your dad constantly kept saying to me, you just have to speak into it. And I couldn't get that to work. There's no speaker on mine. And then Elizabeth showed me what to do.
Oh, good.
Joking all this time is listen, Adrian, I'm dyslexic, so I do have trouble spelling things correctly. And I write, I write a story. I could write a book just every time I talk to someone, right? And so to write notes, and I'm quite slow actually at typing things. So to discover that, and I'm thinking, this is the younger person and the old person and people like me who struggle to type really quick. This is the key to putting all that down. Only if you can get the voice thing to pick up what you say correctly, and not, you can usually go and at least then, okay, change it.
Figure it out.
That's cool. I will freely admit I couldn't figure this contact mapping thing out, because I'm thinking, you're always talking. You talked about it. Your dad talked about it. Everyone who does it. You just speak into it. You just speak into it what you want to say. And I'm thinking, I can't do that. Where's that function? I don't have it. And it's the same as when, I didn't realize that it's the mic on when you're typing it in that you actually can speak. And oh dear. Well, if you can teach it from you tricks, you can teach anyone. So I have it now, but look, that's really great. And look, guys, I really recommend whatever you are doing in your life, even if you're not building a business, even if you're just wanting to remember someone, for contact mapping, I can put you in touch with Adrian, and you can get that app down on your phone. The younger generation will love it, and you can track all your friends. And it's, look, I tell you who it's good for. It's good for historians, and I'm a bit of a family historian. When you're sort of doing out, and you don't have to take a piece of paper with you when you're tracking family history, you put it all in contact mapping. How cool is that? That just came to me. A number of times I'm doing family research and catching up with relatives I've never met before, and where's that paper? I can just put it all into contact mapping, and I don't have to carry around lumps of paper. That sounds about. That's a good idea you had there, Bronnie. No, I didn't think of that. So see what a conversation happens when you have a conversation.
There it is.
Everyone brings different ideas to the table. And Adrian, you helped me just unlock that idea in my head.
I love it.
Oh dear. So that's pretty much where you've come, and you've got a beautiful wife and 3 little kiddly winks, as I like to call them. And so do you think that any of them will follow in your footsteps?
I hope so. It's very sweet. My little boy, when this is maybe a year or 2 ago, he goes, Daddy, when I grow up, I want to be a baseball player and I want to be a contact mapping man. So
well,
I thought that was very sweet. What'd you say?
He can do both.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So yeah, so far so good. He still looks up to me for now.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing because yes, that is a good thing because he got that from you. You look up to your dad, and I love watching the pair of you work together so well, and you bounce off each other so well. I don't catch your radio stations all the time because it often clashes with other things that I have to do, but I catch it when I can, and I just see the way you bounce it off each other, and that is a beautiful relationship to see. That
We
is a
have a lot
beautiful
of
relationship.
fun.
Yeah, you certainly do. Well, guys, oh, Adrian, before we go, it's Tip Tuesday here in Australia, in Bronnie's world. So what is a tip that you would like to share with us today? If you haven't already, I mean, you've given us heaps of tips.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. We're in the holiday season. There's a lot of, holiday gatherings. There's a lot of family gatherings, all these bits coming up. And it's the perfect time to discard whatever story or whatever you may think about these people who you have maybe been around for a long time because they're colleagues at the Christmas party, or they're family members who you've grown up with, and you think, oh, I know what they're all about, and I know their story and whatever. Just discard what you think and take a genuinely curious attitude into those conversations, and just start asking questions. And just like what Bronnie said earlier about some of the previous people who she's spoken with that share something completely different than what she has heard them share in the past or whatever, you will find that there's so much more, or maybe even that the things that you thought were true 20 years ago, and they're not even, they're long since, that people change all the time. And so get curious about the people who you're spending time with, and you may be very surprised what you learn and find out if you show up that way.
Absolutely, I totally agree, because like if nothing changes, and people change all the time. And even people who don't think they've changed,
Yeah.
they do. Well, I better let you go because I know it's getting close to bedtime over there in your part of the world.
I can never complain knowing some of the things that you wake up for early, crazy early, to be a part of things on US hours. But it is getting late here, and you can probably tell my voice is getting a little hoarse over here. So I appreciate it. It's been so much fun getting to see you. So thanks for bringing me on.
And thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm very blessed and honored to have you as one of my guests, Adrian. And maybe we can do this again sometime down the track. And yeah, especially after Christmas, when you learned all these new things about your family you didn't know.
Sounds like a plan.
Anyway, well, my friends here in Bronnie's world, as I asked you all really nicely to do, is to stay safe, stay informed, be empowered, but do not live in fear. And when you're contact mapping everyone, and when you're keeping those notes on the conversations you have with loved ones, and even not loved ones, people you first meet, you, my friends, will be powerful, beautiful, brilliant, and most definitely very brave, and you will see your world open up in ways you never thought possible. Thank you very much, Adrian, for coming and being my guest today. And we'll catch you all again tomorrow here in Bronnie's world. And thank you, Adrian. Good night, sweet dreams, and God bless.
Good night.
Good night.